Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Turn him out.
Jimbo.
Old stories like long-lost friends, rodeos and late-night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located right here in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Mr. Songwriter himself, Mr. A Little Bit of Everything, Jimbo Snively. Hey, Jimbo, good morning. Good to see you. Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in Osage. And Cody, we got one of the great ropers of our era in Mr. Ken Bailey from right down the road from Okmulgee, another one of them great Oklahoma ropers.
Ropanoke.
Yeah, Ropanoke. And he was like two-time IRA champion calf roper, 16 times qualifier for the International Final Rodeo, 2 times average winner in the team rope. He's a great team roper, too.
He roped steers, too, Jimbo.
Yeah, now he's roping steers good, you know. He was in the American Cowboy Rodeo Association. He was all-around champion from 1997 through 2002. The calf roping champion from 1997 through 2002. Team roping finals champion. Calf roping finals champion, 94, 96, and 2002. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. He roped well in the PRCA. Just an all-around great roper. And and his family, his dad was 4 times IRA world champion calf roper.
It's 7 foot by 12 foot.
So we're just tickled to death to have him with us today. And Ken, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
This is a great honor. I am tickled to death to be here and with all those guys like Clay Tom and Arnold Phelps and Rodney Lay and post-track and all them for being here. And it's just, if I can be up there, that's neat for y'all to have me here. I'm blessed beyond.
Well, it's our pleasure. Where'd you grow up at, Ken?
My family, I've been in Okmulgee all my life. My family moved there probably in the 20s. So we've had business. I've had business ties there since 1920. And I was raised there.
I mentioned your dad. Is that what got you started roping?
No, my grandpa was in the race horses. My dad didn't start roping until he was 16, and a guy down the road was roping, and then he wanted to rope, so he started roping. But my grandpa was into the race horses, and he was really heavy into politics. And my family comes back from business. They was hustlers, and just trying to make it.
Right. There was an old guy down there, an old steer roper. You might have heard of his name, Hayden Rucker. Did you ever hear of him?
I never heard of Hayden, but now there's Herb Myers. Herb
Myers was another one.
Herb Myers
yeah.
was a great roper.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was another one right there in between at Schulter, about 5 miles or 10 miles from right there in between there and Henrietta. Was 2 more Indian boys that roped. I can't think of their names right now, but I'll think of here in just a little bit.
I think I know who you're talking about. That's pretty ropey. I mean, there's been a lot of great cowboys come out of that area.
There's a lot of great everything. Will Sampson, the great actor, Okmulgee.
Yeah.
Did you know Will?
10 Bears, we call him 10 Bears. He had a son the other day that was looked just like him.
His daughter lives in Pawhuska, looks just like him.
And his son was telling me in there that, they played that movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he got $1.50 for royalties off of it, so he's tickled. But no, he looked just like him. I was going to do a reenactment of 10 Bears, when he come in there and talk to Clint Eastwood. It'd be the Blood Brothers. That would have been pretty cool. But he passed away about 6, had a real bad car wreck. But Will was good for our town.
Did you know him?
I didn't know Will. My dad knew him. I was just a kid when he left. He left, and he drank a lot, and he had a drinking problem, and he left to go out there. But he drawed. Everybody in Okmulgee's got one of his drawings.
wow.
He would barter a lot with his drawings.
Hey, if one runs through that pawn shop, give me a call.
Yes, sir.
What about Mel McDaniel?
Mel was
Baby's got her blue jeans
and
on.
stand on it and
Stand up.
stand up. Yeah, he's good for Okmulgee. They've helped him, and I think he passed away a few years ago. But he comes back in about once a year and does a concert for Okmulgee. Oh, at one time, in Okmulgee was 1 out of every 4 people was a millionaire.
Wow.
Okmulgee was bigger than Tulsa at one time. It was just it was something.
Where'd the
else.
money come from, Ken?
Oil
mostly
money.
oil. Yeah.
Oil money.
Yeah, that's we had old Horace Barton's grandson in here last week or two ago, and he said that's how they bought the Chapman Barnard Ranch. It was the oil fields in Glenpool, not too far from Okmulgee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of oil money, and then they over budgeted. Like they'd buy stuff and they'd build a building and somehow you can get behind, and then all of a sudden, the depression hit. So a lot of them went belly up.
Well, that depression was bad, wasn't it?
Boy,
What caused all that dust in the Dust Bowl, Jimbo? We're getting way off of roping, but we'll get back to
The way
Big old arena they dug up.
the way they farmed back then, they didn't know about terracing and spots where you'd leave spots, to stop the erosion and everything. And it was just a farm. Grain prices were high and in the 20s, and they just farmed every little piece of ground they could. And then we hit that drought and those winds. And I mean, they just lost several feet of farmland in some of those places. And a lot of it came to Oklahoma, just big clouds move in is unreal. And people I've heard them old people talk about taking wet towels and putting it around their window sills and stuff just to keep the dust from coming in their house. People got dust pneumonia and died. It was just terrible.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks for the history lesson.
Well, I don't know if I'm even right or not, but heard that somewhere.
Who'd you start roping with, Ken? Who helps you out the most growing up?
Dexter started roping. When I was a kid, Dexter was supposed to be he was the man, or said he was the man, or he'd
dad?
tell you. Yeah, Dexter. I never called him Dad, or if I was home, I called him Dad. But if I was somewhere, I just called him Dexter. But Dexter was pretty much a man. Him and another guy named Don West. Don West was a guru. I used to think he was the godfather of calf roping. But Dexter was good, and then Mike roped a lot, and then my Uncle Randy roped a lot, and I grew up roping. That's all I was supposed to do. I was supposed to rope. When they sent me somewhere, that's all I wanted to do was rope. And that's pretty much, I was around the horses, around the thoroughbreds. We ran a lot of thoroughbreds. My grandpa did, so I got to hang out at the barns, and the thoroughbred trainers were very intelligent, and I learned a lot from them.
Did I don't even know what I was going to say now. I had a good question, though.
Yeah, that'll happen sometimes,
Yeah.
Jimbo. Happens to me more than it does you most of the time.
Hung out, my grandpa was there, and he I was probably my favorite of my grandpa. And at one time, my grandpa might have been he told me he was the 8th powerfulest man in Oklahoma. He was over the Highway Commission. He put a guy named Howard Edmondson. Him and Howard was thicker than thieves. And he put Howard in, and then he come back, and it really would have turned Oklahoma. I think he told me one time he got to drinking, and he said he really could have turned Oklahoma around in about 1974 when he run Clem McSpadden for governor. I don't know if you remember.
Right, yeah,
that.
sure I remember.
And then Bourne beat him, I believe him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember Edmondson coming to the house, but I do remember we wasn't a Bourne fan. But Mr. Nye was there, Walters, there was another one there. But I got to meet them and really didn't know who they was. They were just common guys. They'd come in there and they'd come to a county, and my grandpa had a lot of pool in that Okmulgee County.
Yeah, he's pretty well connected, sounds like.
He got to do what he wanted to do there.
I know what I was going to ask you now. Did you do the high school rodeo thing?
I high school rodeo, but when I was going, I was kind of like, when Clay Tom said, "Man, I like the money," and I kind of did that, but I like roping, and I didn't. There were some Oklahoma youth rodeos. I went to those, and they had so many more ropers. And I could go to them and be more feasible. And I was kind of a wild child. My dad got divorced, and I kind of went here and went there, and that's probably kind of what made me. I was kind of like Cody, they just threw you out there to the woods, and you're either going to sink or you swim. And I was pretty, I had a successful rate in there, and I did good in high school. I went to about half of them, and I made the. They went on points and a little bit of money, and I didn't really care for that. I did go on rope, yes, and hear my name called, but the Oklahoma youth rodeos, they was good, and they was really good. And I went to a lot of open rodeos too, and a few sanctioned rodeos. I got my card when I was like, silly me, in IRA. I got my card when I was like 15, 14. It was silly me. I could have been rookie of the year easy, but I didn't.
Where all did you have to go? Where were a lot of those IRA rodeos?
They was mostly back east. Back east. Now, I didn't go back east a lot. I would go back. Now, during the wintertime, I would. They had a lot of the Longhorn rodeos, the better ones. I would go back here, and there's like 10 of them. And I would go back there to those, and I'd come back, and a lot of those boys would go back east. You got to stay on the East Coast if you want to try to have a better chance at winning the world. But back then, I was roping. I roped for the money, and I roped to eat. I had 2 kids to feed, and a wife just say, hey, you gotta run this thing. Your days are over, son. You better make some money. You got to get that job, and.
Tell us about the Longhorn Rodeo. I've heard a lot about that.
I tell you what, that Longhorn, there was a guy that run that. His name was Bruce Lurkey, and Bruce was. I always thought he's kind of a hard ass, but he was great for rodeo. Bruce. Now I heard that all the RCA producers come over there, and they took a lesson from him, and then took his ethic and made the rodeos. Except, Bruce he could put a rodeo together. I mean, they didn't paid pretty good. He had like $2,500 added, but that's a lot of money back there in the 90s. But Bruce had good rodeos. He had the contestants, and there was one time he come up to me and he said, "Ken, I want you to talk over here, and you do this and you do that." And I'm a kind of guy that you don't tell me what to do right then and there. But my grandpa, I was in politics with him, and I seen he said, listen, before you open up your mouth. So I got over and listened a little bit, and I thought, well, I better do that. So I had a little interview, and I kind of said what he wanted to say. Next thing you know, he took me in underneath his arm a little bit, and he said, "Now you be over here next week, and we'll." So, and I got my door in there and to the IRA rodeos, and kind of learned out how it worked and work with people, and it was good. Bruce did really good for the IRA, and he passed away. And if we had more Bruces out there, I think it'd be a lot better deal.
Where did they have all those rodeos at back east, Ken?
They had on major towns. Pontiac, Michigan. I never did get to go there. They quit it. They had Aubrey Hills. They took over Aubrey Hills after Pontiac, Michigan. They had just every big city would have one.
There's a big IRA rodeo up in Canada.
St. Tite.
Did you ever hit that one?
Oh, man, I tell you what, I rocked the house there. That's the house that Ken built. I tell him. I roped there once. I win the first round when I get there, and it's set up for me. And the calves they rope were kind of like wore out, wore out Longhorns. So they bring those in, and it was just a score where you just say what the heck and go. I just back up in the box, and I rope my first, and I win the round. They told me, let me back up. Walt told me about it and said, "Man, you got to go up there." I really didn't want to go across the border. I just always like home, this.
Yeah.
Think,
it's the
heard
big
too many about stories, about them guys getting over there, and they might want to keep Kenny Boy.
Well,
but anyway, he told me about it. So I went up there. I went first round. I went in. I come back and I placed in that next round. And I was riding Chris Neal's horse, Pretty Boy, that Fred Whitfield won a lot of money on. And I was fortunate enough to get to ride him there. And I come back and I roped for that big money like they do at Calgary. And then I told Chris, and Chris told me I could ride that horse if I didn't reach. I said, "Well, I won't reach. I promise you I won't reach." And I did in the first two. I rode him like he wanted me to ride him. So I come back in that last, and I was the last guy to ride him. I said, "Hey, can I let my hair down?" And he said, "Yeah." So and that last one just set a pretty much like Canada. I come back and I let rock and roll, and I was 7'3", and I was tickled to death. And then when I made that run, I thought, man, if I could ever get in that Calgary, I mean, they better watch out because I'm going to do one thing. Or Vegas, if they ever let me in Thomas and Mack, I hate to sound like post-track, but they let me in there one night, I'll come home. I'll win my money and come home. But I roped there then. The next year I come back, I just fly up there. I wasn't into that driving 37 hours. I fly in there, and Chip Porterfield was there.
He's been in the NFR.
Yeah, Chip roped really good. He had a little yellow horse, and I believe that was Lorraine's horse. Lorraine lives here now, I believe.
She lives right over there in Barnesdall.
She had a horse called Banjo, good yellow horse, and I got to ride old Banjo, and he's a little tight, and I come out and win the first round again. And I have a good calf on my next one, and I seen him just a little bit more, and old Banjo kind of hung with me a little bit, and I missed. So I go back, and then I'm going to say it's 10 years later, back in when last year I made the finals when I was 52 or 53, I go back up because I got to get there if I want to make the finals, that one rodeo. I go there, and Grady Potter's boy, Luke had a good gray horse, and I said, man, I'll go up there if you let me ride that horse. He said, yeah. So he's pretty sharp. He said, well, I'll go up there if you'll heel one for me. I said, well, I'll go up there. I'll heel one for you if you want to win it, you know. Well, we went up there. He turned me one. We placed in the team roping. First round again. I win the first round again. And I come back on my second calf. Have him back on the ground, and my own knees are bad. So I get down real low, and when I tie him, I don't give him a wrap and a half. I give him 2.5, and I tie him in 8-1 or 8-2 to win the second round. So I'm going to win 2 rounds. So when I get up, I'm down so low, so I touch that calf with my hand. When I get up like that, flag me out.
Didn't they know you're 53 years old up there?
Well, they come out of the stands, and they didn't like it. But man, there's nothing you can do.
Well, you can't do it. You're not supposed to touch them.
Well, but they do. I mean, I've seen everybody. You just NFR.
Well, you got to touch them to get up sometimes.
You do. But I did get flagged out, and that might have cost me a chance of winning another world. When I went back to the IFR 50.
Did they have the jerk down rule up in Canada then, in the IRA rule?
Yeah, they have it. You can't cow kill them or put them on their side.
Right. They had that in Calgary.
But a lot of those calves you don't need to. I mean,
right.
You're not going to win much if you do.
Right.
Or unless you're good at it. Now, I do like putting some of mine on the ground. I mean, not killing them, but just you can just pat them right there on that left side, and they'll just pop right up in your arms.
Right.
If you do it right.
Right. But it's just odd to me that way on back there they had a 5-second penalty at Calgary back in the 30s and 40s in cab roping, you know.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. My grandfather roped up there.
And back then I'd ride off on a calf and trip that stuff before I got down on
that was the deal.
That suckers were, and I roped at Clem's the last year he had it. And that was, golly, like Clem said, I got good news and bad news. Yeah. The bad news is the good news is the little set weighs 285, and the bad news is the big ones are 3 1/4. I mean,
yeah. They had jerk down rule in New York, Madison Square Garden from the very beginning, 20s and 30s, big calves.
And no, Jimbo, I never roped at the Madison Square Garden.
I won't ask that.
I ask everybody that. Well, they had a Madison Square Garden rodeo back in the 80s, Jimbo.
Yeah,
so
they had.
A lot of people could have done it back in the 80s, so it could have happened. Or I think early 90s even.
Yeah, I don't know. They tried different
I've been
times.
to the Belmont, though.
Yeah, well, that's pretty
Went
cool.
up there and watched the horse sale.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's about the only thing I've done in New York.
Yeah.
You ain't roped no calves nowhere in New York.
Nowhere. Yonkers, I take that back. I entered Yonkers one time, and I was at Yonkers.
Where is Yonkers at?
I don't know.
Somewhere up in New York?
I don't know.
I used to have to go back there every now and then for some stuff, Jimbo, and it always surprised me. I thought the whole dang state of New York was just like New York City. But
right.
It seemed like I drove for about 10 hours and didn't see even a town or anything there for a while.
Oh, I'm sure.
And there's good. You get out in the country, there's good people, and especially in Canada, some of the nicest people I met in the world. And everybody rides a bike up there. There's a lot of people that ride a bike everywhere. But it was it was a good experience. If I had to do it again, and I might go back one of these days if I get a chance to go back.
Yeah. I've heard them talk about Loretta Lynn having something to do with the IRA.
Now, Bruce Lurkey run Loretta Lynn stuff.
Okay, that was her stuff. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yes,
you didn't mention her a while ago, but
he ran her and dudes stuff. And Bruce talked about that a little bit.
Okay.
Super good. You never would think that Loretta Lynn was come out and barefooted. I mean, she's done a lot of. I mean, she's, I guess, Reba McEntire would be our Loretta Lynn around here. You know, but she's just one of us. Mm-hmm. Is the way he talked about her.
Yep.
And gave away real pretty belt buckles, Nelson silver buckles, and Everett Crandall won something. Everett Crandall come home and everybody's saying, "Hey, did you meet Loretta Lynn?" And he said, "No, I don't know her." And his wife's sitting right there, and I'll be dang, the next rodeo, Betty goes with Everett to the rodeo, and Loretta Lynn walks right up her and hands him the buckle and says, "Boy, it's sure good having you last week. When you going to come back to the house, Everett?" Busted.
Holy moly. Loretta Lynn. Did you see that video the other day Tanya Tucker put out? It has old Bobby Brown in it and a bunch of the old cowboys in it.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. Well, I hadn't. I just kind of grazed through it.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Bobby Brown and quite a few old rodeo cowboys in that.
Right. I've heard somewhere she dated Bobby Brown or something. Was that just a...
Well, yeah, she dated quite a few of them around there, I think.
I heard that too.
That's the word on the street. I don't blame her.
No. Don't blame me.
Makes me like her
I'd
a
go
little
eat
bit
lunch
more.
with her one time just to see me pick her brain. That was she's singing Delta Dawn when she's 14 years old.
Yeah, she's just a little old kid when she started.
She's one of the last of the of the greats, I think, probably.
Oh, she's got the most classic country music voice, I think, that's out there still.
Yeah,
know?
she's great.
She's.
But
Maybe Tanya will start putting on some IRA rodeos just like Loretta did.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Maybe.
Hey, that IRA.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than any other association here just a few years ago. I know it just sold maybe last year or something, but didn't one man own the whole association?
Well, I tell you what, yes, probably yes and no, but at one time back when the 60s and 70s, it was governed. You know, you had your board of directors, they run it like a business, and I think it was a lot better then. And then it went up, and then it went for sale, and then one man bought it. And I thought he did good with it, but, you know, it's like anybody else. I don't think one guy ought to have control over the whole thing.
Well, no one's going to agree 100% with anything anyway.
But, you know, and then they sold it to somebody else, and the WCRA, or I'm not sure on that, but hopefully it's going to go. And they're adding $500,000 this year.
Well, you know, I think it's with that WCRA, that's a pretty powerful organization coming up. And
I wish that, you know, like the Cowboy Channel would do some you know, some of the rodeos.
Well, this WCRA, they get their rodeos on CBS and stuff. So the PRCA better hold on for what's coming up. I don't know what's coming up.
The IRA, the boys in there, they come through. Right now, IRA, all it is a stepping stone for them to go up. You know, those guys come over and they rope and you know, I had a chance to go over, but, you know, I just didn't, you know, I was with Speed, and Speed said, "I'm going, you want to go?" And no, I ain't going. And he went, and Brett Gould and Brad Culpepper and Vic Morrison and me and Todd Markham, another guy named Todd Markham, we never really went. We stayed here. We was, you know, we was making a great living here, and I hated to quit a $10 an hour job to go look for one for 20. You know, and we was hitting rodeo every day. I mean, we was going. You know, the pay wasn't near as good, but you know, the guys I was roping against didn't have bullets in their guns either. You know,
Brett Gould. Do you know he was born in Pahuska?
Yeah. Brett Gould, Too Cool Gould is what we called him.
Boy, that was a roping son of a gun.
Man,
Holy moly!
I lived with him I was. Excuse me. You know, I look back and I might have roped pretty good, but man, you can rope pretty good if you have the badasses behind you. Man, I had Brett Gould and you know, Speed, Speed headed for me there for a while, and a lot of people don't know how good he heels. I mean,
He made the national finals heeling. First time he made the finals, Speed Williams.
He'd rope. I tell you what, he roped at my house once, and the guy was there. And the next day there was 10 guys there. And the next day I told him, I said, he left. I couldn't. I mean, they'd sit on the fence. They couldn't believe a man could rope. He could rope 30 or 40 of them, not miss one. I mean, it was just fun watching him rope. He just had a big old loop, and you just come around there and just. And it roped very good. Now, all of them did. Brett Gould roped good. Brett Gould was very fast. I mean, very fast. And probably another one that had the fastest hand-eye coordination I've ever seen. And I got to go with him 2 years, the funnest probably time of my life. And we got ready to go. We was going to go big time, and I didn't want to go. And he had a chance to go with Brett Boatwright. And I said, man, pack your bags, get out there. You're going to do good. And they said he had too small of a loop to make the NFR. And I said, shoot, you might as well buy your tickets because he's going to be there. And that's Mr. Brett Buckus.
Mm-hmm.
Brett was, I mean, he was one, and he had the mindset and everything.
That whole family could rope.
Yeah, Brett was, I mean, he was something. He's still roping today, but.
Where's he at now? Is he still around there?
I saw him the other day.
Claremore?
He is somewhere in Pennsylvania or New York. He's kind of giving lessons.
Where's Todd Markham at?
Todd's in Veneta.
Yeah, that's where
Todd's
he's
doing
from.
good. I talk to him every now and then. He's doing really good, and he's got a nephew that really ropes good, Kel.
Oh yeah. I've been reading his name.
I mean. Kel can reach in a different zip code and rope one. I mean, and he yields good too.
Todd started out roping in our steer
Todd
rope.
tripped good.
Yeah, he was in our steer roping club, and I thought
a lot of guys don't realize if he wanted to be a tripper.
Yeah, I thought he was going to go ahead and be a good
tripper. Him and Guy,
and then he
hung out
just
a
quit.
bunch.
Yeah, I mean, I never saw him.
It might have been
again.
too much work, maybe.
Yeah, I had to get off.
He's probably going to be mad if I say that. But.
You know, a lot of team ropers, a lot of calf ropers, they get real frustrated with the steer open event because they say, I did everything just like I was supposed to do, and, none of it worked out. And then the next one, I didn't do everything I was supposed to do, and hell, it all worked out, It seems like a lot of guys, I've seen JoJo Lamont quit steer roping a couple times, one of the best ropers.
He could do it.
Period. And they just get frustrated with it because sometimes you just can't cut a lot of corners roping steers.
No,
like
you
can.
can. I asked me about roping steers, and I say it's like roping calves with a ball bat, But man, you got to be a great horseman. And then here's the thing: you got to have a better partner that you're underneath you, and you got to have a war horse. If you don't have that war horse, you're just spitting in the wind. I mean, I've been there, I've tried it. Yes, I can cheat them roping calves, but no way roping steers. I'm just an average Joe Blow, but stick me on a great horse, I'll be a better roper. That's anybody roping steers. You can take an average guy and you put him on that. You put me on a Rocky Garnett horse, and I'd rope a lot better. But that steer roping, it'll mellow you out, it'll humble you, because when you send that horse out, you want him to. You got to be a great horseman. I can cheat him roping calves because I got my rope tied off, and I can make him. He can walk up, he can. But roping steers, and you got a 600-pound steer there. Now roping these 350, 400-pound steers.
Yeah, I was going to say, when do they rope 600 pound steer?
It's been a while.
But yeah,
it's been a while. Yeah, some of the other guys he was talking about a minute ago, Jimbo. Speed Williams revolutionized team roping, changed the game. Made the finals heeling the first time, then just totally changed the game heading for everybody. Now everybody heads like Speed
And he
Williams.
knew all that before he ever started. We was 20 years old, 21 years old. I'd probably go into a store. Me and Brad Culpepper probably go in there, and we'd probably buy our clothes. Speed Williams might walk out with a box full of clothes. I said, what'd you get? He said, I talked to that guy back there, and he said, I told him I'm Speed Williams, the world champion. Look what he gave me. I mean, he was so smart. He was, and he told me what he was going to do when he gets over there. Yeah. We flew to Lakeside one time to rope. We flew there, and we had an
California?
Yeah, this how silly we was. We flew in there, and we had an hour and a half to kill. So we rented a cab. Speed took care of everything. We went over, he took $100 bill, took our $100 bill, and he gave that guy $50. And he said, keep this thing running. Said, we'll be right back here in 10 minutes, and we'll give you the other 50. So we went in the casino, we gambled real quick, and we come out, and we come back, we come by the Thomas and Mack. So when he looked at me, he said, if I ever get back in that building, I'll own it. And right there in front of you, you can ask Brad Culper. I said, they let you back in that building, you'll be cleaning it, and you're the janitor. And I called him back in 3 years. I said, yeah, Bubba, I'm proud of you. And I'm glad he's done good. And he's probably one of the best teachers out there with the kid. He's in Breakaway. He taught that girl to rope and that boy to heel and some other kids to rope. But my hat's off to Speed. I mean, we've had kind of our differences, and we rope together and he's one thing about Speed. He loves to shoot pull, and he never could beat me shooting pull. And I finally had to quit shooting him because I got tired of playing him. And then he wanted to play me for $1, and then I'd get the $10 and I'd buy his lunch. But Speed he was great for rodeo, and I really enjoyed the time I got to spend with him and Brett and Britt and Brad and Rick. I mean Rick. And there's another good one that people don't know about, Rick Branch. I went to a roping one time, and I roped with Rick and Vic, and I had Brett and Britt. So you go in there with these guys. And if you rope bad with one of them, you just jump that other guy in there and just say, hey, no, that was Britt. No, that was Brett. No, that was Rick. No, that was Vic. And, if you're somewhere out west, they wouldn't know who you was. So that's kind of sneaky, isn't it?
That's Speed Williams'
Well,
daughter.
it sounds like something that might happen in the IRA rodeo. I'm not sure.
That's Speed Williams' daughter that ropes so good, isn't it, in the Breakaway?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
sir. Yes,
Boy.
sir.
His boy rope's good too. Holy
He
moly!
obviously his boy rope. A little girl, I've seen her come up, and I didn't know how good she's going to rope when she started. But I'm going to tell you what, he's got a roping program down there. If I had a kid, it'd be what Dexter would do to me. He would send me. He said, "Get down there." Yeah. And Dexter did that to me. Dexter used to, when I was 12 years old, I'd have a match with Dexter, and he'd give me 5 seconds to run. He said, you can't beat me. Sure enough, I couldn't beat him. Finally, I beat him. Then I went to 4 seconds. And then time I was 15, I was down to about 1 second. And then when I could beat him, he said, I'm done. Then he'd send me here, send me there. So all those guys are good. They're all good. But
That Brad Culpepper he's talking about. Holy moly!
Brad is probably one of the best horsemen out of all of us. He would, if I got up at 8 o'clock to feed, Brad would already have his horses fed and riding one. His horse was, and when he went somewhere, before he ever go, he washed his truck. I mean, the inside might be a little dirty, but the outside, he said, first impressions. I mean, it was. And I knew right then I had to clean up my act. I had to clean my act up.
I wouldn't have been good on their crew because
No.
as many bars as I've been in, Jimbo, I can't play pool or dance, either one worth a darn.
What were you doing? Just
Well, I don't know. Making memories. I was making memories for people that I don't remember.
Now, I don't think they wouldn't go to a bar. Let me tell you. They're no altar boys.
Yeah, I can't play pool worth a darn. And I've been.
Speedy wouldn't. Speed wouldn't. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't. But he would. He loved. If there's any kind of game to play, yes. If it was putt or anything like it, but he wouldn't go. Now, me and Brad and Brett, and there's another boy named Robert Lloyd. They didn't know about him, and he passed away. And he was another bad one that was there.
Who were you saw a lot of great calf ropers, maybe even in your dad's era, and then when you roped.
Yeah.
Who were some of them that maybe you saw?
I'll tell you what. When I started,
that could have maybe been champions in the RCA if things had broke right and they'd have tried.
Probably Terry Davison. I remember him roping. But, when they first started, I knew all about Glenn Franklin. Dexter said, man, you got to watch Glenn Franklin. I couldn't because I was too young then. He told me about him. And it was at Don McLaughlin. My dad went and stayed with Don McLaughlin. And, my dad went up a week early. Of course, my grandpa was probably paying the bill, but he got there, and I think Dexter roped him every day. Every day my dad said, let's rope, And he stayed up for 2 or 3 weeks, and he was another great one. And the Burks, I saw Barry rope once, and he roped good, and my dad said that, Clyde roped real good. I didn't get to watch him, and Franklin, Don McLaughlin, all the greats, Toots Mansfield. I didn't get to see them, but, I think that they kind of started the way on calf roping and horsemanship. But, man, I'm going to tell you what, when when I saw Roy Cooper rope, I thought, golly, how does this guy do it? You know, and I was just a kid then. But Roy, other than Don West being a godfather around here, Roy Cooper is the man, was the man. I mean,
There was another guy that I've heard, and I never saw him, but I've heard a lot of the IRA guys talk about how good he was, and a lot of the RCA guys, and that was Bill Hensley.
Bill Hensley, I never did get to learn to tie, but I have his technique a little bit. Barry Burke told me, and I spent a lot of time with Barry. Barry Burke told me, Ken, I seen Toots, I seen McLaughlin, I seen Franklin. They all roped here. They cannot beat the man. They said Bill Hensley, and when Bill passed away 6 months ago,
yeah,
probably
just a few months
6 months ago, I didn't get a chance to go to his funeral, and I regret it. He's when I seen him the last 2 or 3 times I seen him, the man come up to me and talked to me, and he come over and he looked at my rope and he said, "Man," he said, "you got that thing short, don't you?" He said, "Hey, that'll work." And I said, "Well, Bill, this horse don't stop." Bill was they call him Goob. And he comes up and talks to you. He didn't have a hat on. He looked like a bookworm. I mean, but, I never seen him, but they told me he was bad. Did Danny Hamilton learn to tie with him? I tied a lot with a guy named Sonny Pickens. He rodeoed with my dad. And I got to tie with him a lot, and they tied a lot. But when I tie, I try to rope with a lot of forward motion. Wherever I go, I want to be going forward. You know, if I'm tying, if I fumble, I'm going to be fumbling forward. And
I've seen Ken a million times. He's stepping off his horse way before this booger ever stops, Jimbo. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to.
No, you're
bust
fine.
in there.
But Hensley roped. There was a lot of great ropers in there. Hensley, another guy named Don Smith.
I was just going to say Don Smith.
Don Smith. You know, he went the IRA one year, and then he went over on the other side, and did good in the RCA. He had that good horse named Zero. And, that's what's neat. And a lot of the calf ropers now, they don't know those guys.
Right.
And they need to have a little education on them because, man, if they know them and hang around them, those guys, man, they're, it's like being around your dad, man. They're such great horsemen. They can, like my dad would pick up the phone, he'd leave somewhere, he'd stop, and he said, "Man, that horse ain't working." He'd call West, "Man, what I need to do, the horse is, well, change your saddle, do something, so you're not winning, you're not doing something.
Did you make a lot of your horses, or did you buy them?
Well, I tell you what, when I was a kid, I had some of the best. My dad would get me the best horses that kid could ride. I was grateful there. And then I had some that I practiced on. I could do whatever, but most of them was with somebody. But back then, everybody had a good horse. And you could go, and my dad's allowed to show up with the horse, and, hey, the guys over here, hey, this horse is not doing this for me. My dad was, this horse not doing this for me. That switch. I mean, we're allowed to come home with riding a gray, bringing a bay, It was just, they don't do that nowadays, it's, but no, I was fortunate to have some good ponies, but we mainly, I mainly bought them.
How much has calf roping changed since you've been watching your dad up to now?
Calf rope, I was thinking about that other day. If, the calves have gotten a lot littler and faster. And I was just thinking right now, when I come in, or when I seen the guys come in, not Roy's area, let's say Joe Beaver's area. Now, if those calves would have been right now where Joe come in and Fred come in, so me and Fred's the same age. When Fred come in, rope the little calves, and now I'll go back and rope the big calves, what would it change? I think Joe Beaver's would have been right there with Trevor Brazil. He's bigger and he's stouter, and he ropes, and Fred's the same way. But no, they went to the smaller calves now. Now, when I went in there, I didn't want to go in there. Shoot, I don't go rope that, that calf that weighs 280. I didn't want no part of it. I wanted a fast sit up like it is now.
There's a bunch of those little old guys roping calves now.
Yeah, there's little guys now.
Hanchy.
And it's, and I wish, I like littler calves, but I like good little calves. I don't want some of those. Now they're too little, I think. I mean, it took calf roping out of, like Cheyenne.
Well, they tie them until they quit kicking before they rope them.
And they don't know how to tie. You you got to set that calf up. You need a string, just like a steer roper. I mean, you take a steer roper, he can tie a fresh calf better than a guy, that can tie.
Well, a lot of these guys want to just throw the legs up there just high as they can get them, and those are the ones that kick, a lot of times.
A lot of them tie with their knee on the ground anymore, which I do now because my knees are gone. But,
right.
but
I always wanted to. It seemed a lot easier.
But no, it's changed a bunch, and I don't know how much it's going to change. But I'm like post-track. I don't see them tying them any faster. There's no possible way.
And if they went about as fast as they're going to get.
I think so. And here's another thing. That girl's breakaway roping, they can let me enter, and I don't want no part of it. I mean, there's no way. I mean, how can you rope a calf in 1.6? They ought to let the boys enter, because I'm going to tell you what, the girls would just tear them up.
Wow, that's quite the event coming on right there. It's one of my new favorite events. It's always been a good event, but it's definitely getting
good watching.
Really good watching.
It's fast paced, and the girls don't gripe and complain. You go to a team roping or a calf roping. Oh, the calves are big, or the calves are fast. Oh, my horse not working.
You ought to be the stock contractor.
You can run a milk cow in there, and these girls are 1.7. Mm-hmm. They can run a baby Bill in there, and it's great. It's great for the sport. I think, and it's going to help. Membership.
Horses selling horses.
Horses went up, and the girls. I tell you what, I really think the girls ride better horses than the boys.
They ride some good horses.
I mean,
I wonder when they're going to get the rope during the finals on TV.
They should put it on there.
But it doesn't take that long to run
they
it.
should.
They should have done it already.
It's politics. If they go on strike, if they stop cooking a meal, I guarantee you,
Yeah, I mean,
they shouldn't have it over there. I'm with you, girls. I'm gonna tell you what. I'll be your sign carrier if you want me to, because y'all need to be there. I mean,
it doesn't take 5-10 minutes to run.
Well, they said they didn't want to go in until they got equal money into the main perf, but I mean, they had team roping in there for many a years without equal money, and they had steer roping many years without equal money. So they need to just go ahead and put them in the perf right at the NFR for everybody.
But do you ever watch the bull riding? The bull riding's always 5 to 10 minutes longer than the calf roping or the team roping. Usually the calf roping, the bull logging, you put the bull logging, team roping, and the bull logging, team roping, and the calf roping together, and the barrel racing. It's not near as long as the saddle bronc riding and the bull riding.
Well, them bull riders, they take too long to get out of the chute sometimes.
I do love watching the saddle bronc riding out there. I think that is probably the best dang event out there at the finals.
Yeah. It is great with all those great horses and all those great riders out every single night. Holy moly!
What about the right boys? Is that not?
Yeah. Well, they've got my interest in. I watch the bull riding now just to watch the right boy. I used to shut it off after the calf roping, actually, but
I fell out of my easy chair so many times watching him.
Now we got old Winda up there, so I watched the barrel racing with Winda and the other girl from over at Skytook, and I got to stick around and watch old Stetson Wright in the bull riding. Those guys are pretty unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
As a family. They're about like that Bailey family down there in Okmulgee.
They all look alike. They wear them blue shirts, and there just seems like there's a new one every time you turn around.
Well, there's 13 of them, and there's six boys.
Pretty soon, no one's going to win any money in the saddle bronc.
I like to see what the girls can do. I bet they kind of like Connie Cooper. I bet they can grab a water bucket with both hands, a 5-gallon water bucket, and walk over and.
Oh, I imagine they can turn.
I bet they could ride one too.
Yeah, the whole family.
Or rope. Just think of a breakaway rope.
Holy moly! They must just start strapping them in there in their car seats. Go ahead and strap old Ryder on the car seat on
That's
that.
That's the only family that had to have another car to get all the family there.
Talking about rough stock guys, he was a little before your time in the RA, but Dan Daly. What do you remember about him?
He called him Double D. He was good for IRA. Dan was a super nice guy, clean living, didn't drink. I'll tell you a good story. I've won 2 all-arounds, lost 2 all-around champions to Dan. And I probably didn't have no chance to win them whenever I started, but had a good chance when I started, but they said I couldn't win it because Dan was the man. It was 76, I think, when he won his first one. And then the next year he lost it to a guy named Mike Waters. And then he wins it again, repeats that from 77 or 78 all the way to 92 or 3. No, 94. And the guy that beat him there was a guy named Mike Uthier.
Yeah.
Mike Uthier come up to me at Springfield, Missouri, was a high school kid, and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting my IRA card. What do you think?" I said, "Well, jump in." You know, he said, "I think I'll get in there and I'll give him a run for the all-around, and I'll make the finals in 3-4 events." I'm thinking, yeah, son. You know, and I thought, yeah, you're just blowing smoke. That was at the ACRA finals in November. I'm on a plane with him going to Lakeside, and his little old arm right here he's riding with got a knot on it, and his dad tells him toughen up. Milburn?
Yeah, I know him.
Boy, kid toughened up all right. Sucker win the bronc ride and the bareback riding at Lakeside and placed in the cap rope, and he beat Dan Daly.
Dan Daly won, I think, 18 all-around championships.
Won 18 of them.
And now old Mike Uthier, his daughter, is the top breakaway roper in the country, one of
But
them.
only body beat him was Mike Waters, Mike Fletcher, and then Mike Uthier. All Mikes. Isn't that something?
That is something.
And I couldn't beat him because my name wasn't Mike. But he, good kid. I seen him ride a saddle bronc, hoe it out of one, and get off of him. Just calm as day. Just over there and get on a horse. Take his chaps off, leave all of his spurs and his bronc spurs on, and go tie a calf and win the calf roping. And then when he won the all-around, I think he won it once, twice, and he says, "I'm fixing to go to the big leagues." And I said, "Well, get over."
He made the final saddle bronc ride. And that guy, if everything would have went right for him, he could have given Trevor Brazil a run for his money in that all-around in the PRCA. He could rope calves just about as good as anybody. He could.
Yeah,
he could
I don't
do
know.
all
I don't know. I'll have to.
When he was a kid, he could rope calves.
I love Mike to death, and I like Trevor, but that's a different breed. Trevor is.
I think Mike could have made the finals roping calves.
He might have done that.
And then with
Mike,
a couple in the rough stocks. He could have gave Trevor a run for his money. He never did, but he could have. He could have for sure. Ken don't think so, but
I don't think so. I like Mike to death, and I'd have to ask Mike that one.
I think so. I think Mike was a heck of an all-around hand, one of the best I've ever seen.
He could do it all, but that's hard to do though.
He was past his prime when he joined the PRCA almost. You know.
I tell you another one that would have been a game changer, and we married sisters. And that was that's my brother-in-law, and he's probably was. They can say if they want. Now George Paul probably was the greatest bull rider ever, but I'm gonna tell you one thing: if George Paul was there, he'd tell this guy, "Say, come on, let's go eat lunch," and that's Terry Don West.
Oh yeah,
I never seen a guy that rode more bad ones.
Is that Don West boy?
That's Don West's boy.
So it's a pretty small circle we're talking about here.
Right.
One of the greatest, one of the calf ropers he looked up to.
No, Terry rode good. He won the OGRA. Like when I was a kid, we had all the OGRA's rodeos here. And, you know, all the families like the Bradens, the Potters, the Postracks, Danny Lemons, they helped put that on. Man, that was a lot of my upbringing right there with that. I mean, I was part of that family, and that was great. And Terry, you couldn't beat Terry. Danny Lemons would win the all-around because he would ride both events, and Terry Don West would win both events because he'd win. And there's another guy you didn't think rode bulls very good, and that was Terry Postrak.
I see that. He's built for it.
He rode bulls, and I'm going to tell you what ended his career. Ended his career was Sand Springs. He won't say that, but he had I think it was a white little Bramer bull. I mean, slam dunk him. And he thought he was in Omaha when he got up. But he said after that he wasn't ever going to ride another one, and he didn't. But he would surprise you. Terry won the OGRA I don't know how many times.
I talked to him on the phone yesterday, Terry Don West. He got kicked by a bull this last week. He's got to have another surgery. Last time me and Jimbo talked to him, we were supposed to do a podcast with him.
What,
and he broke his arm that morning.
Terry Don might not tell you what he had for lunch yesterday, but he can tell you every bull out there. He rode at George Paul once and should have won the round one time. And this was when he's 24 or 25, rode the Bucking Bull of the Year. And they said, man, they got to you. He just got his stuff and come back to the IRA. Then it was 35 before he went back to the RCA. Then he went to the PBRA.
Did you see? It was in Guthrie, Oklahoma. I think during that Bullnanza one time. They're matching Terry Don against the bull Bodacious, I believe, the worst one going. And he was so beat up. They picked him up because this for like $1 million or something, Jimbo. This one ride.
Right.
He couldn't even stand up on his own. It's the craziest thing. It sounds like a lie telling, I swear to God. They pick him up, and they lower him down on this bull. He has no strength left on his own. I mean, he's beat up. He just got hung up or something like right before that and really, really beat up. They lower him down on this sucker, cinch his bull rope into him, put his hand in there. He rides the son of a gun. He rides him. They had to lower him down on him, Jimbo. He couldn't do it on his own. Dangest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I think they screwed him out of the $1 million somehow after all that.
He rode that bull. He rode Bodacious. A lot of people don't know the guy out there at Western Oklahoma owned that bull before he sold him. He rode him at Stillwater or...
Yeah, they used to buck him in that bar at Stillwater.
Yeah, somewhere over there. He rode him as a baby. They brought him in there as a baby, and Terry said when he bucked hard when he was a baby, and then he got that where he'd come up and slam dunk you. And he entered, he gave a lot of them that, what they call that razor, bull rider's razor right there.
Broke every bone and tough heat on his face.
Yeah, Tough. What was Tough's buddy's name that played in the movie, Lane Frost? Yeah. Cody Lambert. Cody Lambert's got his right there. He's proud of his. Yeah. I would be too. Couldn't that be neat to have that?
That was a bad dude, that Bodacious.
But no, there was a lot of those guys come out of them old days. Skip Akers was another one that come out of there. And Skip used to stay with me, and he's kind of a little outlawish. But I used to go to town with Skip, and it was always something.
A lot of these outlaw people, come to find out, I just thought they were regular people growing up. I'm sure Ken did too. And come to find out when we got older, heck, we were hanging around a bunch of outlaws growing up.
But,
that's probably what they're saying about you now.
Yeah, I imagine. The Bailey family over there, how many calf ropers are there over there in Okmulgee, or has there been in the Bailey? Because when I think about Okmulgee, I think about Bailey's trading stuff. Cars, trucks, trailers, boats, pigs, chickens, anything. And I think about a little horse racing business they had and calf ropers, rodeo hands in the family. I mean, they're synonymous with that.
Yeah, there's, Cole's there, and that's Mike's boy. Mike rope good.
Yeah.
Mike placed at Bushy Head one year, won really good, and he made the IPRA finals a couple of times. But then
they call him Lantern Jaws. Is that what they call him?
With Hog Jaws.
That's what I always heard.
No,
I used to work at a car dealership.
He's super great businessman, and he took the best route. He took over the family business. My grandpa, that was Riley Motor Company, and then my grandpa and Dick, that would be Mike's dad and my grandpa were brothers. And they took that business over, and then my grandpa went on to be an attorney, and then Dick took the trucks over, and Dick worked it pretty good. And then along comes Mike, and Mike took it to a new level. Mike went out there and bought those back when the dualies come out. You remember the 454s? He bought every dually he could get in the 4-state area, and every cowboy had one. And then he got another deal with Chrysler. And then I'll be dang, the next year they come out with the Cummins motor in 88 or 89, and every cowboy then had one. So, but Mike, I tell you what, Mike's there at Mike might go to bed at 8:30 at night, but the man is at that office at 4:30 in the morning. If he's not in the race barn, he'll be there at the office at 6 o'clock in the morning. If you ever need anything from Mike, I will say that. I can't keep up with him.
He's always a great friend to the cowboy, the rodeo cowboy. I know a lot of people.
And then
they just went and grabbed a truck, and then they did the paperwork the next week, Jimbo. I mean, he's always been a great friend of the cowboy.
Mike's done good, and then his boy is Cole. Cole's the boy that roped the American. Cole ropes good, but his old heart's not in it right now. But he can rope. The kid can rope, and then he has another boy, Bart. Bart roped good too, and he just he didn't want to rope anymore. And Bulldog real good, and then see my mom's sisters, Larnell, and my mom are sisters, and they're from George West. And Randy White married Larnell. My dad married Sue. And then Larnell and Randy had two boys, and that's Walt and Wade. Walt could rope. Wade and Walt roped good.
Oh yeah, that's some more than roping Okies. Wade and Walt White.
Walt can rope. Walt won the IRA 7 times now. Walt, he beat me our first one we went together, and he won that first world championship and beat me by $160, and I might have lost. I lost one to him. I don't think I lost one to Tom Walker. There's another one, Tom Walker. It was phenomenal. He could rope. Tom, I learned a lot from Tom and Roger Branch, and then let me see who else is in there that rope. Dexter started it all. Dexter's probably the guru. He's the one that got on the horses and then my boys. I got 2 boys, and I'm glad they don't rope, but and they don't want to rope. If they did rope, I'd probably be broke, but they're doing good. They're into the business, right. and they're doing good. But we take pride in it, and we love where we're at.
I didn't know you were related to the Whites.
Yes. Me and Walt would be. All
these dang roping Okies are related
here's another
somehow.
thing. Now, when my mom and dad got divorced, probably one of the fastest guys from the pole, and I did beat him, but he was probably in the 7th or 8th grade when I beat him. My mom married Steve Slack.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And Shane, I didn't rope a lot with him. I mean, I roped.
That's your stepbrother?
That'd be a stepbrother. Now that was 2 or 3 times. So that's pretty neat. I'd have Terry on, and I'll tell you a good story. I get ready. My Uncle Dick was he's tight. And he said, "Oh, you don't need a rodeo. One rodeo, it ain't gonna get you nowhere." And that's one reason why I didn't want to go. If I lost, I'd hear it from him. They had the qualifier for the American. So Walt, he said, "Let's go." I said, "I ain't going." It's a host. It can't be a host. Ain't nobody gonna give you $1 million. Anyway, so Walt goes. Walt ain't got 2 nickels to rub together. He goes. Cole goes. He said, "I'm gonna go. You wanna go?" I said, "No, I ain't gonna go. It's a host." So Cole goes. So they go, 2 or 3 of them. They get qualified. So they go to another one. They get qualified. They're going up the ladder, and I'm thinking, I don't think they'll make it. I mean, it's a long road. I mean, you had a rope. Now the top 15 was already in.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, my goodness gracious, they let Walt in that son of a gun. He's going to do something. Walt, he's lucky and he can rope. But, and so they go to Fort Worth, Cowtown down there, get ready to rope, to get ready to go in the big house. Well, I'll be down. Both of them make it. Both my cousins make it. So I'm getting these calls. Where you at? Where you at? I said, well, anyway, they go. So I go and watch them. And then I see Walt a week earlier, and he said, "Man, what I need to do? I said, "Well, you need to get when you tie your shoes." He said, "I can tie my shoes." I said, "No, you need to get when you see your shoes." He's about 10 pounds overweight, but he slimmed up, and he got ready for it. And I'm up there on the top. Walt ropes first. He backs up in there, and he is 7'4". And before I roped like that, Walt told me, this is the God honest truth. Walt says, I said, "Man," he calls me up. He said, "I don't know how you put that." He said, I talked to him. I said, "Man, I wish you luck and do your thing." He said, "I tell you what, if I do hit this, I'm gonna holler at you." He said, "Let's invest this wisely." And I said, "Okay." He said, I'm $20,000 behind the hole right now, and after that $20,000, we'll do whatever we want to with the rest." And I'm thinking, hey, that's pretty nice, your old cousin to say that. So he ropes, and I'm really pulling for him. And then Cole calls me and says, "Hey, if I win anything here, roping's on me all next summer." And I thought, oh, this is really a good deal. So Walt ropes first, and he's 7'4". And then here comes Cole. He's 7'3". So I'm winning first and second in this. I'm sitting up in the stands, and I'm drinking beer with these guys. I ain't even started drinking. I don't even drink beer, and I'm having a beer.
Well, yeah, you're celebrating.
I'm saying, "Boys, look here." I said, "Listen to this story. My uncle told me to stay home. I stayed home, and I out-rope both of them, and they don't think I can." I said, "I can out-rope both of them. I'm in the stands." Well, long story short, they come back. Cole makes it. 4 more ropers come, knocked Walt out. And I wish Walt would have. That'd been something I'd had both of my kinfolks there roping. And then Cole come back and rope, and then he missed in the short round. But long story short, I got what the little boy shot at, nothing.
That was that big controversial deal too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what all happened on that, Jimbo.
Yeah, I
Sound
didn't
like a
mean to
crazy
bring it
He
deal.
said, she said.
Cole wasn't.
I'm pretty good
part of it, I
idea.
know.
I'm pretty good idea what happened. You know, Walt White one time, we were putting on some rodeos over at Claremore, some timed event rodeos. We only had timed events in it. He showed up and he paid all of his fees with $1 bills. And he said he'd been by the trailer last night playing dice. And that's how he paid his fees the next day. $1 bills.
That's a good one. He been to the, he was going, if he wasn't going to go there, he was going to go to night trips that night or somewhere.
Yeah, he must have got it from dancing himself. You know, Jimbo's granddad, he won the IRA. The IRA's really progressed through the years. Can you give us a little history of that, Jimbo, and what the IRA used to be and how it,
Well, it's totally different. They're not connected in any way
besides the name?
besides the name. The RAA, the Rodeo Association of America, in 1929, they formed, and they were mostly contractors. They weren't, or committee men. They weren't cowboys, but they wanted to kind of normalize the judging and the rules and everything. And they crowned the champions from 1929 to 1944. They crowned the champion. Even after the Turtles, all those old Turtles, Clyde Burke and Toots, all those were Rodeo Association of America champions. But then in 1945, the RCA was formed, and the IRA, and the RCA was going to crown their own champions. So the IRA went the separate way, and they merged, not the IRA, but the Rodeo Association of America. They merged with, and I don't know if it's the NRA or some other small group. They merged with them, and neither one of them wanted to take the other one's name. So they said, we'll just change it to the IRA, the International Rodeo Association. Okay. And they rocked along, crowned their own champions. And my grandfather was 1954 world champion steer roper in the IRA. And then later on, he was world champion in the RCA. And it was all RCA hands. I've got the newspaper articles. Casey Tibbs, Jim Shoulders, Dean Oliver was the cab roping champion in 1954 in the IRA. But anyway, and they rocked on. And the only difference was
Jim Shoulders won it once.
Yeah. They took out the interest fees before they subtract the interest fees from their total money for whatever reason.
They only got a rope for the purse, not the entry fee money or nothing, right?
Yeah.
They kept all.
Well, no, I mean, when they kept track of the points,
Gotcha.
they subtracted the interest fees, what it cost them to rope, from their total. And then they'd crown their own champions. And a lot of the rodeos were co-sanctioned by them and the RCA. But anyway, they rocked along, and they fizzled out in 1956. And then I think it was, I don't know, I've got it down here. 1957, when the Interstate Rodeo Association started, and then they changed to the International Rodeo Association that we have now. And then in 1983, they changed to the IPRA, just like the RCA put the P on them, you know.
Gotcha.
But the old IRA had nothing to do with the IRA today. That's the most confusing thing in rodeo history, and I've been confused telling it. I probably got everybody confused, but they had nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, I know. I seen Jim Shoulders IRA buckle and
Yeah.
a bunch of those guys.
Jim Shoulders won it, 57 or 58, somewhere before
I think he won it in 54 the year, because I've got that newspaper article where Casey Tibbs won the all-around, Todd Watley won the bulldogging, Jim Shoulders the bull riding, my grandfather won the cab roping, and Dean Oliver won the steer roping, and Dean Oliver won the cab roping.
Ain't that something?
Yeah. But everybody thinks that old IRA was the same, and it's told they're nothing, they don't.
Tom Ferguson's another one I
Yeah.
enjoyed. I mean, he was, he could rope, and you do it like this, and it's kind of he was pretty neat.
He made the steer roping final.
Tom Ferguson, we all met a lot of times. I was living in Henrietta. Shoulders was there. Tom Ferguson showed up one time. Me, Tom Ferguson, Jim Shoulders, Mike and Gary Johnson, Dixie Hart, Phil Hawk, and there was another. Who else was there? Might have been Ole Smith was up there, and all in there eating breakfast. I'd love to have a picture of that.
That'd be a good one.
And but Jim was quite something. I got to hang around with Jim in his older days, But he was really a neat. He was really great for. You never would see him without his cowboy shirt, and Every now and then he'd have a ball cap on, but most of the time he had that weird style cowboy hat.
Yep.
Did you practice with Tom Ferguson much?
I roped with him a couple of times. He was really hard course. He was there helping some kid, and then he cussed his kid out, and then the kid said something back to him. They was tying. He said, "If you can't tie that calf in 5'2", you don't even need to be tied," you know. And the kid said something back to him, and Tom got string run down the rope, and Tom was probably 60 years old. He did it. And I had a horse there one time that set so bad, and Tom said, "I can fix that horse." He said, and I said, "You can?" He said, "Yeah." He run 2 on him, run that first, and he about fell off of him. The second and third one, I mean, he whipped him by him. He done this, he done that. So, and he come back, he said, "Here, run one on him." I said, "How you fixed him? I'll haul him." And I called him Monday. I said, "Hey, I got the rear ends on him." And then I sold him.
What was it like practicing with like Barry Burke and Blair and them down there at their place? A guy like Barry Burke, you know, he was a great roper. But what I noticed later in life is he'd get in the box with those guys or the guys that was hauling with them. He'd make them all feel like $1 million. Like they were the biggest winner. They're the best roper. You know,
I like Barry. I like Barry's dad. Barry's dad was a guy called D Burke, and he talked real fast like that. You know, and I don't know, I was just a kid, and the way he talked, you know, I was, and he was always super nice to me, and I didn't even know he wrote, but he was a guru, and that's where Barry learned it. And Barry's probably one of the best. Barry could see 20 horses go out there and see a horse that wasn't working very good, said, "Buy that one right there." You know, he'll make a horse, and Barry's good at that. But Barry could fine tune one and pump you up, and Barry was very good. He's very wisdom, and he's helped more kids. Had that youth roping down there, and it's probably the biggest. He's the one that first started the youth.
It's one of the first ones, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. And then when he started that, and then Roy started. Well, Jim Smith started Smith Brothers, but he might have got that idea from Barry. But Barry practiced. He didn't use a poly rope. He wanted you to use because you get bad falls. Your saddle had to be just right. I mean, he was just everything had to be just. He was more into quality. You know, you make one good run instead of try to make 5 runs and get that one run. He wanted that first one. You know, he wanted to, and and if you ask Barry, and he'll say, you know, "Can I beat that guy?" You better work at it. You know, and so.
Did you ever go down there to J.D. Tadlocks or anything?
No, I had a chance one time to ride. I think he had Prime Time. Isn't that horse called Prime Time? He had Calf Horse of the Year, J.D. Tadlock. He
had a great black horse that Cody won a bunch of money on, and some others.
This is before that horse, but he had him, and he had that horse, and then Cody won a lot on that black horse. Cody won the world on that horse once, but me and Walt flew to Lakeside, and I had some good little old calves there, and Walt said he's riding Prime Time. Told me, he said, "You better get on Prime Time." And I said, Robbie Woodrow was there. I don't know if you know Robbie Woodrow.
I've heard the name.
Anyway, he had a little horse called Speedy, and you could ride this horse all day long, never get him out of sight. And I was going to hill on him out there, and I drawed a good calf. And I thought, man, Prime Time's law to jerk this calf inside himself, so I'm going to ride old Speedy. So sure enough, Walt, he rode that other, and I rode Speedy. I ended up winning Lakeside. And but that was pretty neat. But Tadlock had some good horses. He was down there with Ricky Shelley and all those horse show guys, and they showed him a lot. He could really get one working.
If you were putting together a Mount Rushmore of IRA calf ropers, who would you put on it? 4 names.
I'd probably have to go back to the 70s, man, that'd be hard. You know, you'd have to put, a lot of people don't realize, Don West would have to be on there because he never won the world, but he won, I think he won 2 or 3 or 4 deals, finals. Mm-hmm. You know, and it never really went nowhere. You know, there was Don Smith. I don't know if I could put him on there. Dexter, you had to put Dexter on there because he won 4 out of 10 years. You know, I really wouldn't know who to put on there. Tom Walker would have to.
You got to though.
Tom Walker would. Tom Walker, he got in the truck with Roy. A lot of people don't know this, but he won a little bit of money in the IRA. He had him won quite a bit in the IRA, and Roy needed him in the RCA to help him, so he gets in with the truck with Roy, and he missed the finals by two holes, and then he comes back and goes to IRA rodeos, and he's IRA world champion. And that was in '83 or '84. Then he come back and made the finals in '88 and '89 or somewhere right around there. Tom Walker would have to be there. I mean, rope left-handed, and he tied right, and he could really rope. That guy could. He's a badass now. I'm telling you. All those guys could rope.
Mm-hmm. We need one more.
Let me see here. That's a good one. Another guy that come out there was Ryan Jarrett, but that was a little younger. But
that guy ropes good. All around world champion.
A lot of guys don't even know. They ain't even seen the best in him. He bulldogged so much in the IRA, and then he went over and he won he went all around.
He made the finals first year. He made the finals bulldogging.
I could see him coming back and bulldogging and making the RCA finals. I mean, I don't know. I think he hurt a knee or something like that, but I could see him doing that. But in there, I'd have to say there's Bravos Gravitt. He roped good. Man, I wouldn't know who to put on that for that last one. Tom.
He's probably thinking about Ken Bailey.
Well, I don't want to be. I tell you what, I've done a lot. Danny Hamilton. He was up. He was another rope good. And
Billy was a fast tying son of a gun too.
Billy could really tie. Billy could get real low. He looked like a blanket when he covered him. He could tie. Danny, I learned a lot. Danny his strings are that much shorter. I couldn't use them. I tried them once, and he tried to make me, but I could not use them. But Danny held the record there for a long time for the most money won, and I was sitting there eating with him, and I thought, I had a good chance of winning. I thought, you know what, I hate to tell him I'm going to blow him out of the water, because when I tell somebody what I'm going to do, one time I was going to go win some money and buy that rifle right there, and then I never won a check for 2 months, so I just keep my mouth shut, and I thought, I'll just hold on here. And then after the finals, Danny, he called me up and said, Ken, you rope good. You know how he talks. But and then I beat him for that. But I feel fortunate. I won 2 world titles in there, and I probably should have had more. I know I hold the record for the runner-up. I'm runner-up in the all-around 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. Calf roping 2 or 3, 4, maybe 5 times. And the team roping I know behind Terry Crow, Speed Williams, and Vic Morrison. I rodeoed with Vic 2 years, and I didn't drive 100 miles. That's how much that guy, he loved to drive. Vic loved to drive.
No one I ever rodeoed with liked to drive ever, Jimbo.
I bet you didn't either.
No, I was the worst driver out of all of them, but somehow they always made me drive. Here's the dangest thing. I was 12 years old, and my dad was crawling back in the camper making me drive.
There's no way I'd go sleep with you driving.
Yeah, I know. I got pulled over one time. I wasn't even old enough to drive. My dad was in the camper.
Yeah, I remember.
But
that.
I've been blessed, and like I said, it's been a great run, and it's probably, I hope it's not over yet, but
he's roping better now than he ever has. I feel. I was telling Jimbo that the other day, and he's like, "Oh no, he's getting old and slow." Probably. I'm like, I don't know. I said I think that
I can't do it like I used to. But I made 2 real good runs this week. I went to Jay, and it was a big Irie rodeo, and then I went to Muldrow just to get me a run in before I went to Jay. And I've been doing a few little schools and just, hands-on with some kids. I like working with the little blue chip kids, the kids that can really rope. And I do enjoy doing that.
What do you think about the youth roping nowadays? Holy moly. There's kids, they're taking them out of school. They're roping every day. They're buying
homeschool.
They're buying them, all the equipment, all the horses. And by God, there's a lot of them taking advantage of it.
They're still going to have to go to the fundamentals. I don't care what they do. They can have the $1 million deal. They're going to have a decent horse. They're going to have that swing. They're going to have that, And a lot of kids, I've always been fortunate. If I had a bad fall, he come up just right. And they got to learn out how to do that. And to do that, there's no substitute for practice.
You know, one thing I noticed about Ken a lot, and it reminds me, I'm going to say Brent Lewis. Maybe there's a good comparison
I'm
there.
going to tell you what, Brett Lewis, now there's a bad cat.
Raymond Hollenbaugh. Ken reminds me of Brent. Raymond, he never quits hustling. Never quits hustling. You see a lot of these guys, and he wins from never quitting hustling. And you see a lot of these guys, one little thing goes wrong and they decide the run's over. They give up. But I've never seen Ken give up. I've never seen Brent give up. I've never seen Raymond Hollenbaugh give up.
And Brent and Mike Johnson roped over there. Lon Chaney had a rope, put on a roping, and had them 2 roping. That was a heck of a roping. I've seen some good ropings, and that was probably one of maybe in the top 5 or 6 that I watched. Brent Lewis riding a little blue, ugly-looking little horse, Ranchy. And, I mean, he put everyone down, both of those guys. But I would like to say this, and Mount Rushmore, Roy Cooper would have to be the first one on there for me. I mean, he was ungodly, and then I'd want to say, Joe Beavers, how he done stuff. And then another guy that won the world, and he won it on. All those guys won world on different horses, and now I do like that. I don't like the one-hit wonders, one. But now another guy that won the world on different horses, and I couldn't run the calves that he ran. I've seen him run some calves that would just tear my shirt off my back, and this guy would just mad him. He tied everyone down, and that was Fred Woodfield. He was.
That's the best era in calf roping.
And he roped good. My last one, it would probably be a tie between Cody and I should throw Trevor ahead of him because Trevor's done it, but Trevor went a different route and was team roping and steer roping and doing that. But Trevor might be ahead of those guys up there. I'd have to put him on top of that. I'd have to make a billboard and put him on. But now below that, the ropingest a guy not to ever win the world championship, and who do you think that is? Ropingest calf roper ever.
Shoot, I don't know.
Barry Burke made a lot of finals. Never did win it.
Barry Burke.
Yeah, you
I'm just going to have to say Barry Burke.
You had to say Barry Burke. You could say Blair. You could say...
say Jerry Jeton. That guy roped good.
No, Mike Johnson. I'd have to say Mike Johnson.
Correct. Yeah. You're a good
Mike
one
Johnson.
on that.
Mike Johnson's made it 19 times. Was runner-up once. Won the NFR. But that amazes me how they done that.
He always seemed like he didn't have the best finals when he had the best
if
chance
they'd have
to
kept
come
it
in.
where they run them out there a little bit, I think that would have been his deal. And I learned a lot, with Mike. Mike's about 3 or 4 years older than me, and I roped a lot with him. And
his brother's quite the horse trainer, isn't he?
Yes. I can get into Gary here in just a second, but I tell you what, I was beating the guys around the house, and Dexter said, well, come on, we'll go down here to Mike and Gary's. So I thought I'd go down there and give them a dose of Ken Bailey. I'm going to tell you one thing. You climb that rope, you hit the punching bag, you hit the speed bag, and then we went and tied. You can't beat them. I'm going to tell you what, you couldn't. And Gary's 20-something years older than me, and he's 16 years older than Mike. And Gary ropes very well. I learned a lot on how to log horses from Gary. And then I roped with Charlie Noble about 5 or 6 times. I learned how to log the other way with Charlie. But Gary's probably one of the best guys I've ever rodeoed with. Never complained about nothing. Didn't matter. Gary Johnson's super duper roping sucker. Roping son of a gun too.
I've heard a lot of rodeoing stories about Mike Johnson. How's he do it? How's he do it when he leaves the house?
Mike is doing good. You need to get Mike here. He is quite something. He can tell you some stories that would just you'd hold your side. But Mike's I tell you a good story. Roy Cooper said he went to a roping, and I don't know where it was at, but they was talking back and forth, going to do some gambling, and Roy told him, he said, I can pick the winner of this, and there's 50 of the baddest ropers there, and the guy said, you can pick the winner. He said, yeah. He said, I'd pick 3 guys, one of them will win it. And they bet some money on it, and they said, well, who is it, Roy? And he goes, I won't.
He took 3 and let them have the field.
He let them have the field.
Gotcha.
And he said, I want both Garys and Big Daddy. And they said, what? And he goes, I want Gary Johnson and Gary Ledford. Gary Ledford there's another one, the baddest of the bad, Gary Ledford. And they said, well, who's Big Daddy? And he goes, me. So I thought that's pretty good. But there's another, and Gary Ledford win the rope. A lot of people don't know this, but Gary Ledford, I think, beat Roy 3 times. Roy might have beat him once. But Roy, you can ask Roy, Gary's never broke a barrier or missed one when he roped Roy. There's 3 matches they roped. I know they roped at least 8 head. That's 25 calves that guy, 24 calves that guy's run.
Hey, if you want to see a match roping anybody, it's somewhere available on the internet or on video. It's Roy Cooper,
And
Brent Lewis, the Bob Crosby roping out at Roswell, New Mexico, about 95, 96 area, maybe 94. Possibly one of the best matches I've ever seen. And I watched Cody Ohl and Fred go at it at San Angelo several times growing up. But best match for the money, calf after calf, is that one right there. Brent Lewis against Roy. Brent, I think, ended up winning, but it was just the most powerful match I've ever seen.
He's roping big calves.
They were roping big calves, long
Scored
score.
them out there.
It was really something. It was really something. And they were just all, Roy'd do one, Brent'd do one, Brent'd do one, Roy'd do one. It was just all neck and neck the whole time. Just possibly one of the best matches ever caught on video. No doubt.
Did you rope many match roping?
I roped a few. Lost a few, won a few. There's been some that I won. Most of my matches, I roped a guy one time there, a guy named Dexter Grace, and it was kind of a grudge match. But and then I realized then Post-Rack was there. Post-Rack got it going on, and I think I had all my money together, and I bet 200 or 300 on it. And then when I got finished, I got my money, and Terry Post-Rack walked around the ring, and Post-Rack had 1,500 on it. So then I come back over there, and then Post-Rack got me in a lot of them. He would somebody want to rope him, which he was the main man, and he would say, "Hey, no, you can rope before you can beat me. You can beat Ken," and then he'd get me a match. Rope Chip Porterfield one time, real good match at Copan. Post-Rack got in on. I didn't have any money. I roped bad all day. It's so bad. I went over and drank half a beer, and I was kind of buzzing a little bit. And Post-Rack said, "You get on that horse over there, and it said if you beat him, I'll give you a couple hundred." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Chip Porterfield." And I kind of knew him, and that's when he come off of that big win at Cheyenne. Sure enough, I end up last calf. Chip had to be like 9-3, and he slipped when he went to flank him. It was 9-5, 9-6. It was a gift from God that I won that. But Post-Rack got that one going again. And all those guys up there gambled. God, they'd gamble. And I could rope and make an easy 300, 400, 500 just rope if I roped right. And then I had the backers behind me. They just let me rope. They'd put me on a horse. That was what was neat. It wasn't no. Now I go and rope somebody. They want to rope 500. I say, "Yeah, get on your horse," and then they're scared. Those guys, "Oh, he's going to rope. Yeah, something's up." Or they go, flip for 100. They say, "Oh, it's a two-headed coin." I said, "Well, you got a 50% chance of guessing which side I got." But they don't rope nothing like they used to. We used to rope, and yes, there was some hollering, some cussing, some might be some hot lead coming out. But at the end of the day, we all we went and ate. It wasn't no, boy, it's some good pizza. You want some of it? It was all good and fun. And I just don't know why they don't do it like that anymore. I think stock charge went up or something.
We used to match there at the house all the time, running down the rope, Jimbo.
I remember you doing
Hair
that.
pulls out of the leg. We wouldn't even match for money. Look at this. To this day, I still ain't got no damn hair in my leg.
Shoot, you go down that rope pretty good. But no, there's we could sit in here and tell rodeo stories, the match roping stories. I got a few of them I can tell on those other guys. It was good, and a lot of those guys. I never did get a chance to rope Post-Rack. That would have been a good, and I kind of avoided him. I'll tell you another guy that roped very, very good. And he shut Post-Rack down a couple times. Post-Rack shut him down a couple times. That was a guy named David Lawson, and they called him the fireman. And I was by West one day, and I told Don West, I said, "Man, why'd they call him the fireman?" And he looked at me, and he said, "Just when you think you're on fire, he'll put you out." But that guy he had a good little star horse, and every year up here at Bartlesville, they had 2 ropings a year. They'd run him at somebody. I don't know if he's been beat there. Post-Rack might said he beat him, but I don't think he has there, because that David Lawson was a bad cat. He was a bad son of a gun. Linda Walters, another good one. There were some great ropers here. I tell you what, Jack Foreman.
Yeah.
And Paul Lee, I'd never seen Paul Lee match, but back when I was a kid, man, Paul Lee rope calves really good. You wouldn't even believe it. But he would get around one's neck. He'd make about 2 good runs, and then he might fall down on one. But that guy could rope.
Dickie Ray Foreman.
Dickie Ray,
roped
there's another one.
good.
Dickie roped a great match. I seen him rope him over there at was it Eastman's Arena over there? They used to have a roping at Osage, 5 for 27, elimination after 2. You'd have to make the cut on the third one. I never did make the cut. I was only like 15 or 16, but they'd have 80 entries.
Wow.
80 entries, those guys roping. I mean, everybody and their dog would be there. It's a good roping on Thursday nights, Tuesday nights.
No kidding. Well,
But,
shoot.
but yeah, it's. But we'll have to save it for another story. I can tell you where we left off after high school, my college days when I got in the truck, and that's that'd be another story there. I know we're running out of time. But.
Oh, no, we got all day long here, Ken. Gosh dang, he's related to the Whites. Shane Slack's a stepbrother.
There was
Stepbrother at one time.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one of the best matches I've ever seen, him and Cody O roped.
That Shane Slack could rope, man.
Fastest one in the pole around here. Fastest from the pole. He beat me. Like I said, I might have beat him when he was in the 7th grade. Of course, I am probably 8 to 10 years older than him. But he's had the mindset of he was just solid. To be a kid, be like that. He's kind of like post-rack when he's young. He's just matured so much quicker. But he's from that pole.
He came out of nowhere, Jimbo. I was living in Kansas. I was just in high school. I was working for a guy named Junior Lewis, a good calf roper from Pretty Prairie, Kansas. Made the finals one time. There was Troy from Nebraska, Troy Pruitt. He was mounting Troy Pruitt and all of them. And there was a kid there named Ty Hayes. He was winning the Rookie of the Year. He was set to make the national finals. He thought he had it all cinched. And he took a vacation in the last week of rodeo season. And guess what? Shane Slack came back and won Rookie of the Year, took his spot in the finals, in the whole shooting works, and no one ever even saw him coming.
And a lot of guys don't know this. At Shawnee, he was winning it too, and he bumped him out of there. I mean, he was a thorn in. Ty Hayes could rope. It didn't matter if it's a 100-pound calf or 300. He could rope. But what made Ty Hayes, he was with your man Junior. There was a horse named Pac-Man that Post-Track had. I was the last guy to ride Pac-Man before he died. I rode him at Cincinnati, Ohio, at the Riverfront Coliseum. We come back to a rodeo at Haskell, to $100 added rodeos on my way home. While we was there, drove all night long. Me and Post-Track did to get there, and that horse he looked bad. Well, anyway, that horse passed away. He gets another horse. He calls him Batman. And Terry somehow didn't like him or this or that. Lets Junior Lewis have him. So when Junior gets him, Junior fine-tunes this horse. He's got Ty Hayes on him. Different ballgame now, guys. Different ballgame. I'm going to tell you who else rode that horse. Another bad roping son of a gun. And that was Bud Ford.
Oh, yeah, Bud Ford.
Bud Ford rode that horse out. He had both those kids out there, and I'm going to tell you what, he put Kansas on the map.
For sure.
Yeah, but that horse come from Terry Post-Track. I don't know if it's probably Big Terry bought that horse and got him for Little Terry, and Little Terry started that horse.
Yep, I worked for him. My mom worked for him, and then I'd go work on the weekends out there. He had a big cattle operation going on.
But yeah, Ty, man, that Ty could rope. That Ty roped good. Good family out there. Ty's sister's roping good too. She's going to the deal. But no, going back to Shane and Cody, that was a heck of a match. They roped when they was like 19, and then they had another rope. And again, Cody tried to get another dose of him when he was in his 40s, and I'll be dang, Cody stumped his toe and Slack beat him.
That's really saying something because
Shane made his finals in the 90s and made it also in
he made it come back.
Teens.
Yeah.
Come back in the teens.
Yeah, 2000. Shoot, that's the last year I was rodeoing Jimbo.
I tied with him and Chris Neal. I don't think Chris Neal can beat him from the pole. Chris Neal was fast from the pole too. But they was tying him on a 30-foot deal. They was going down through the time in 4.6 to 4.7. And I was sitting there butting heads with them, and I'm 3/10 from them, 4/10 from them. I'm tickled. I am tickled because I knew that my arm was better, and that's what they come back and said, "Man, you're winning third." But I said, "You wait till tonight." We'll see who's going to win third. But no, but Shane, Chris, they rope good too.
Well, if you're going to give someone some advice on getting started roping calves, put it out there real quick for them, because we got a lot of young kids watching this.
Man, I'm gonna tell you what, you're gonna have to pay your price. You're gonna have to get good advice, just like you're saying. You're gonna have to go somewhere, and you're gonna have to. Early bird gets the worm, and you're gonna have to work at it. You're gonna have to rope. Your ethics gonna have to be good, and you have to get an education, because roping ain't gonna pay off for you right now. I'm gonna tell you, and I hope it does. I hope I'm wrong. But you need to rope to get an education, and then let that education. I wish I'd had a better I went 4 years of school and never got an associate's degree, so that's just I fell through the cracks. But I had a great time, great life, and man, I'm still going at it. I'm gonna rope a little bit, but my legs are kind of getting a little weak right now. But the newer generation's coming on. They just got to buy their time. You got to go in there and you got to do the practicing. You got to, you're going to have to put the sweat in there.
Why are you still winning?
Is
it patience?
Well,
is it you know what's going on?
People look at it different. I can look at something. I was always at a carny game, and I can win that. I can win that. Why can't I? I'm human.
You're part carny. That's what.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, why can't you? I can't. If I can't rope that calf, I'm going to practice to rope that calf. Like I bounced it on a couple calves, and and the guy says, "Boy, he's lucky." And like what White said, he said, "Man, I seen him do it at home. Don't tell me he's lucky." I mean, I practice. That's what I'm saying. You got to put your time and sweat in. You gotta pay your, it's like I went with Tom Walker. I mean, the man beat me. I had to keep going. But they paid two monies. When I went with Post Track, my goodness gracious, I was at a roping every night of the week. I got ready to come home. Post Track said, "No, we're going." And I got up and just, you got to get on those horses and you got to run them, and you got to, there's no substitute for, I rope for money. I mean, not a lot of money, but we always put a quarter up. I was always roping for something. I just don't go out there. I don't go out there and rope. I'm going to rope to get myself better. If I want to do that, I'm going to go get a job that pays me something. I don't want to go out there and just rope. Let's go over 5 calves and see what we can do. I don't want to do that. I want to go out there and rope 5 calves good around the neck. I want to put them on their side, or I want to pop them up. I want to be consistent. Secret to success in roping calves is cash flow. That's what my dad said. Cash flow, secret to rodeoing. Being, and you can't win on every calf, but you can rope every calf and tie him down. That's you can't win nothing if you don't get a time.
What's the most rodeos you entered in a week before, Ken?
Oh shoot, I went off to the East Coast in a car one time and went to like 14 rodeos in 9 days, 10 days. It was unbelievable. Me and Billy Lee went to 6 rodeos within 23 hours, 24 hours. And I've done that. And man, I can tell you rodeo stories that we did. It's neat sitting in here. And I'm probably, I know we ain't got enough time, but man, I'd like to sit in here and talk to you all day. But no, wait, I went to Fairfield, Texas, an IRA rodeo, and they had Okmulgee that night. Fairfield had over 100 ropers with $150 fees, adding $200. And that rodeo paid me $4,000 to win it. I come back to Okmulgee that night, and I changed horses and roped there, and it added $2,000 or $2,500 with less ropers, and I win $6,000 in that one day. Pretty much made the IRA finals, and no guy's ever done that in IRA. Made it pretty much in one day. First year I win the world, they said I couldn't win it. I called Barry Burke, and I bought this black horse. When I looked at his papers, there was no word to put my name. Is Rio, and I bought him and left him saddled pretty much all year, because if you unsaddle him, he'd buck you off. Went to 110 rodeos. Wore out 2 guys. And then that's when I set a record that year. And it's funny, it was only like 38,000. That was in '96. Then in '02, I had another horse I got off of G.V. Gulager, and I just tapped off, and I won good in there. I went to 60 rodeos. I told him I was just going to go to 60 rodeos, and I broke that record and won like 40, right there, a little over 40,000 that year. So I win that, and you know, I set the record for the fastest calf tied. Post Track had it. And Post Track, if they'd roped the calves that Post Track had, Post Track did it at the Civic Center in Tulsa, and he roped a calf that weighed, I will give him credit on that. That calf did weigh probably at least 230, 240, 250. He's a big calf, and the calf I run probably weighed 180, 190, and I was 7'2" or 7'3". Me and Tyler Milligan still hold that, and Sean Coleman, I think. But
hey, Tyler Milligan just broke the arena record at Cheyenne Frontier Days. Boy from right here in Pawhuska, we're damn proud of you, Tyler.
That kid can rope, and he, I tell you what, it looked like he didn't get in a hurry until he strung him. And then when that kid strung him, he's up in the air. I'm proud of Tyler. Tyler ropes good. If you know, from having the best calf horse, and man, that broke my heart when that horse died. And that I know that took a leg out from underneath him.
Would anybody?
Oh, man, that was.
If you went from riding the best to not having one.
But he's got another good one now, you know, and the Lord's blessed him with another good one, and if it's meant to be, he'll go. But I hope he does, because that'd be good for us, and he's good for the sport. He ain't no beating his chest or nothing like that. He goes, and that kid can do it. Rope steer's good, and they hadn't even seen the best of Tyler Milligan.
Hey, who's a couple boys coming up that you're going to say their name, and then here in a couple of years
Bo Cooper.
Bo Cooper.
I like Ty Harris. Good kid.
Well, he's already something. I'm talking about. I'm thinking
kid,
Riley O'Rourke.
Yeah,
steer roping.
I roped a lot, but Riley, Riley Webb, calf roper. Mm-hmm. Those two kids right there, they're going to win the world. And then Bo Cooper, they're going to be the next. Now I get a chance to hang around that Riley O'Rourke. And man, first time I seen him, I looked in his backyard. He had a dummy horse, and he had a calf, and he had a steer tying dummy, and there wasn't a blade of grass on there. The kid ropes, got off that thing, and he's gonna make it because he puts the sweat in.
That's what it takes.
He does good. There's so many of those kids now, and it's just whoever gets the chance and gets a shot, and they got to get used to the lights, you know, and that's me. I love it. I'd better rope one for $10,000 as I would for $10, like shooting pool. If I'm gonna shoot a guy pool, I just shoot him for a lot of money than a little money, because I want to see him sweat.
Hey, all you pool players out there, Ken lives in Okmulgee area.
I ain't shot since so long, but
yeah, right.
But
now he's trying to get a game going. I can barely play now.
But I tell you, but usually, like I tell them, you know, when I first got in the RCA, I tell you another guy that would have changed the calf roping in there, and that was in the '80s, and Joe might have slowed Joe down, and dang sure would have slowed Fred and Cody down, and he was a decent friend of mine. That was Sean McMullins. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Yeah, Sean was a roping something, and that kid could rope. And you wouldn't ever think he could rope if you was around him. Just wouldn't even talk about roping. But back up in that box, and his rope did his talking.
He made the finals a couple times before he died, didn't he? He was real tough. Yep. Real tough roper.
Him, I think, and Strand Smith was in that truck at that time. Another good one that passed away in that plane crash is David Bowen. Remember David Bowen and Randy? They wrecked up there with the Kearns boy up there going to Pendleton. Right. That was a game changer too, because that Randy Bowen's from Houston. You wouldn't ever think he could rope. He's probably 5'10", just as tall as he was wide. And man, that guy could rope. Looked like blonde hair. Man, he could rope. He went. I tell you what, he went. Ben Johnson out here, one of the last years they had it. Last year they had it. I think he won it.
The calf roping?
Yeah, the big calf roping.
They used to have a big calf roping before we were open, didn't they, Jimbo?
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, they sure
Joe
did.
Beaver and all of them would show up.
I roped the last year they had it here. And then the last year they had it 3 years ago here, and I entered it just because I was entered 30-some years ago in it.
Oh, yeah, they did have a big calf roping here a while back, and we didn't know nothing about it until it was over.
But that calf roping they had 30 years ago, the Ben Johnson, that was big. I mean, that son of a gun, you had to see him out there, 25 or 30 feet. and they roped some juicy calves.
It started in 1954, actually. The first
And
Ben
all
Johnson,
the names.
they had
That's
a
where I
calf
got
roping.
to see all the big names during that, because Saturday was a steer roping, I think, and
Saturday's
Saturday's a calf roping.
Saturday, yeah.
That's where I got to watch Walter Arnold, Phil Lyons, and all those guys. I mean, it was, man, us kids come up here to that. That was big. But
Well, shoot. What are you doing now, Ken?
well, I'm just.
What do you do for a living besides rope calves and give lessons?
Well, I don't do that, but no, I have a store. I have a pawn shop, and I got some storage buildings, and I got a couple commercial properties that me and my boys take care of.
How's that? You still got the flea market going over
I got
there?
a little flea market. We trade with the poor.
So pretty much Ken will buy, sell, trade, just about anything. You're down in the Okmulgee area. You need a little money. He'll trade something off of you. He'll trade something off of you. You had something pretty wild happen here just the other day. Can you tell us about that, or is there some litigation pending on that right now?
Well, my oldest boy, they. You talk about the robbery?
Yeah, the robbery, the heist.
Well, we had a couple guys try to break in, and my dad always said, when somebody breaks into our house, we see what they got before they get what we get. And I guess they weren't the smartest crooks because they didn't get out of there quick enough. My little boy come by there, and he had 18 rounds in his, and he let them have 4 or 5 rounds, and they coughed it up. So we got our goods back. So it was a good thing. Nobody was hurt. So, but
It's the Wild West still down there in Okmulgee.
it is. Absolutely.
we're just a mom and pop store, and I'd like to thank all the mom and pop stores out there. Everybody needs to stick together.
Well, I tell you what, Ken helped me out quite a bit, Jimbo. He gave me a lot of advice when I opened my pawn shop here, and I truly appreciate it. So,
And look at you now.
not in the pawn business
Big as
anymore.
ever. Big as ever.
Getting bigger every day.
I'm gonna have my own podcast now. How about that?
You should, Ken. You should. I think you should get one going. Well, all right, man. You got anything for him, Ken? Anything else?
Best thing I do is when you rope, just keep it simple. I mean, you just gotta, forward motion, just keep it simple. And most of those guys just ask advice, and 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you.
Yeah, I think most cowboys are pretty approachable. And,
Yeah, you just
and
gotta.
if you want to ask them something, they'll tell you. But they ain't gonna tell you unless you ask them, probably.
No, and it might cost you a lunch or something like that, but it's money well spent.
For sure. Well, we appreciate you coming down, Ken.
Man, it's been a blessing.
You're one of my roping heroes, man.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I am blessed to be up here with all the greats, that you had up here, and all the great that is coming.
For sure. Well, all right, man. You got anything else for him, Jimbo?
No, just thank him for driving up here. We appreciate that.
We really do. We really do. Oh, we're sitting here in the new gallery. I forgot to tell anyone. We're putting in a new gallery right here at the Ben Johnson Museum, and we got stuff you can't find anywhere. Spurs by Wilson Capron. You got to wait several years to get a pair of his. We got spurs by Ernie Marsh over there, and saddles by Troy West, and just all the great iconic builders in the U.S. This is the only place in the whole United States you can just walk in right off the streets and buy you some of this stuff. So we're putting it together right now, and everyone needs to get over here and check it out.
Beautiful stuff. Absolutely. One of a kind.
Yep. Well, all right. Until next week, we'll see you.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.